in the content of this, the awesome. All right, it's 12:15. I've been told by the organizers I have to speak slowly because there's supposed to be 36 people who have signed up for this lecture, but I'll try my best. Those who know me, I tend to speak a bit fast. Good afternoon to all of you, and this is the topic we're going to talk about. These are my credentials. Currently, I'm an adjunct lecturer within school. At the same time, my full-time job is actually in the Singapore Institute of Technology, where I'm an advisor to the president there. So let me just go through the agenda for this afternoon. We'll begin with some definitions. I think it's useful for all of us to be on the same page. Look at some technologies in which I think some of you are more familiar with. And then we deep dive into the whole idea of a smart nation, and especially the example of Singapore. We'll conclude with some points for consideration. All right, in terms of the definition, right, there's always this pyramid that people use between digitization, and digital transformation. So at the bottom is what we call digitization. It's nothing but transforming your physical assets into digital assets. Your receipts, your birth certificate, your 50-year-old marriage certificate, you just scan it and it becomes a digital asset, right? The next level is what we call digitalization. And that is nothing but taking those digital assets that you have in place, working with them to generate perhaps a new outcome. So think of it as an accountant, right? What an accountant does is that he takes all the receipts, he consolidates, and then he gives you a report. So the digitalization of the process now is in place where all the receipts are put in, and then from there, there's a software that can pull everything together and there's a report. So that's digitalization. Nothing but changing what is an analog process into a digital process. The holy grail, of course, is digital transformation, right? Many definitions out there, right? But essentially, is to use the processes that you have to transform your organization, your business, your operations, the way government conducts work, to create new value, right? The test is the new value. Does it create something which is new that wasn't present before, right? That should be the test. And let me give you an example, right? And I will declare my interest in my previous life. Apart from being a lecturer in NUS, I'm also a structural engineer. So you are a client and you go to a company, an architect firm, whatever the case may be, or a design company says, I like to build this house, right? 3 stories, 4 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, whatever the case may be, right? And so what people do in the past, right, you start drawing it out and all that stuff. Today, most of those designs are quite cookie cutter, unless your land is very different, right? So those things are available. And then what they do in the digitalization process with the inputs from the clients, you just pull all of this together, right, to create a design, right? So previously, what was the design? It was a flat piece of paper, right? You'll come in, they'll draw it out, measurements, of course they have the measurements of the land, and then send it to the engineer, and they'll design it, and so on and so forth. So that's digitalization. The digital transformation is really the game changer, right? And this technology already exists. So you ask the clients to come in, put up an AR, VR goggle, you can walk through a 3D rendition of your house. You can see that you don't like the window on this side, because the sun is coming in into your son's bedroom, the staircase in the wrong location, and so on and so forth, right? That engine already exists, by the way. Right? There's a company at Fissionopolis that does this, basically. So at the end of the day, the value to the client is that you are instead looking at a very flat piece of paper, which I used to see, to imagine how your new organization, or new, house or office or building will look like. Today, you're able to see, at least in a 3D, walk through, get some kind of experience. And so that changes the entire experience of yourself as a client, right? So this is what we call digital transformation. Now, in terms of the technologies, you're all familiar with this, right? AI, of course, is the biggest elephant in the room. And in Singapore, we've decided to have a national AI strategy because we're betting on AI, perhaps as a horizontal,
in which all other applications can ride on it, right? And so there's a natural strategy for AI. And then, of course, Internet of Things. You need to set up your smart nation. You need to be able to have sensors, cameras across the island. So one of the things that the government is working on is called a smart lamppost. Right? The idea is that because there's power to all our lampposts, we can use that power, put a sensor, put a camera. The previous problem was that every agency wanted to go to the junction. Right? LTA wants it for their traffic, NEA wants it for air pollution, police wants it for people who basically break the traffic light and so on and so forth. Now everything's supposed to consolidate, and then at the back end, right, GovTech is doing this, they will try and split it up as much as possible. So there's Internet of Things, blockchain, cloud computing, 5G, these are all being rolled out. I don't think I have to explain to you what. In my previous incarnation, people talk much about cloud computing, but it's actually an old idea. Essentially what it's saying is that if your screen is here, your server is at the back. Right? There's a wire that connects. Today your server is in Silicon Valley. It's in the cloud. Essentially what allows that is the internet. Right? And so you have all the security issues associated with that. Right, Internet of course is one of those things we tend to forget, right? It's like at the back, but it's an enabling technology. So you have the first application, server, talking to a computer, and the first application was an email that came out from Silicon Valley to Berkeley. Today, this is how it looks like. It's a World Wide Web, right? Cables running under the sea, right, on the sea floor, all over. So Singapore, we have a lot of cables coming in on the western side of the island and the eastern side of the island. Of course, we have to fight, right? They built Tuas Port. I was a minister then, so we had a lot of problem how to ship on cables and so on and so forth. So this is the World Wide Web. We tend to forget it, but it's the main backbone. Now, what are the features of the internet? I think we have to, first, in terms of its technical, it's about computers which are connected together, talking to each other, because you've been able to establish some kind of protocol and standards. All this started in the 60s and the 70s in the Valley, right? Communications between computers, email was the first application, and of course now you have a lot of commercial applications. So when I was an academic in NUS in the early 90s, right, you use the internet. Why? To connect with other academics across the whole world. But the interface was terrible, right? It was just black. You didn't have all of this fancy interface that you have now. The big question, of course, that people always ask is who runs the internet? Who runs the internet? Who governs the internet? Who is coordinating the activities on the internet? Actually, there's no central body. Closest is ICANN. ICANN is really the only body that allocates things like IP addresses and so on and so forth. It started as a global thing, now it's gone to the states. States decide. For example, in Singapore, you cannot use likuanyu.org, right? It's protected. So digital sovereignty becomes important. You can't even use raffles.org, right? And so on and so forth. So there are a lot of these sort of reasons why states want to claim it, because they want to be able to have authority over it. And of course, the system runs on trust. Right? So I pressed the button this morning. I want to find some information about something in Paraguay or Uruguay. The information is supposed to go over the internet and come to my house. Runs on trust. Nobody has intercepted it in the center. Right? It could have happened. That's why cybersecurity is the biggest risk. So we talk about digitalization a lot. Cybersecurity came only into the conversation in Singapore in 2015. When we formed the CSA, Cybersecurity Agency of Singapore, and I had the unenviable task of being the first minister for that new agency. So it was a challenge, right? But people are so used to the benefits of digitalization, they forgot there's a dark side to digital transformation. All right, so now let's look at Singapore as an example. This is a timeline I like to use in my other class because it's quite instructive, especially for foreigners. The first mainframe actually in 1963. And that mainframe is still alive, by the way. And the agency that's using it says that they have kept it as a backup, even though they have a new system. Right? So way back in 1963. 1981, 1 year after I graduated, right, National Computerization Board was formed. The government decided that we want to pivot. And so you remember floppy disks and all those things that you carried. So when I went to the States in 84 for my PhD, I had to carry all these things, basically clear customs for me, right? Fast forward 97, we have the broadband network. Fast forward to 2003, our digital identity, SingPass. Right? First, there's a backstory to this, right? The first country in the world that has a digital identity is Estonia, right? So they visited and came back and said, no, cannot be done. Right? But we decided to have it in 2003. All of us now, both Singaporean and PR, has a SingPass. It is in your phone that allows you to access government services in the first instance. Now it is opening up to the private sector. So I can access my insurance account, insurance policies through SingPass. I can access many other different things, right? Okay, 2011, the master plan for e-government. Not that we didn't have it, right? That was already in place, but we decided to launch. And we also launched this site called data.gov.sg. A very important website, not because it was the year I joined MCI as the minister, but because it is a website where all government data, which is non-sensitive, is made available to the public. Today, if you're interested in Python programming, use this site because there's a lot of APIs and data that you can use for manipulation. So 2 years in COVID, I tried to take Python programming because I'm of the generation where I did Fortran, so I need to update it, and I use this database, right? And of course, in 2014, we launched the Smart Nation Program Office. Now, most people from other countries will ask us, how do we do it? I said, this journey takes a long time because you have to build in the foundations, right? And even then, now, people will argue we're not there yet 100%. So this is our journey. So what is a smart nation? Well, it's about government employing innovative solutions, right? So that you can effectively meet the needs of the people. So the experience for the public is a seamless interaction with the government. So you'll see later there's an app called Live SG, right? You can go in, register your marriage, death certificate, baby, birth certificate, and so on and so forth. Right? The idea is to make it as seamless as possible. And the end goal is to improve the quality of life. I don't have to queue up. I want to apply for a HDB flat, I go to the app, and so on and so forth, right? So that's the reason why you do it. And of course, because you're the government, you cannot do it only for one group of people, right? Because you go to the elections every 5 years. You have to be inclusive and do for everyone, including the opposition, no problem. So it is something which you cannot select, but you have to be inclusive. But because of that, right? If you look at our demographic, aging population, middle class, young people, different development, different skill sets, how do we make sure that nobody feels left behind? People are part of the journey, basically, which is very important. So that's just a definition of the smart nation. So this is our idea, right? We have 3 pillars in a smart nation: a digital government, a digital economy, and a digital society, right? So let me go through very quickly. Right, digital government. Okay, first video, whether it works or not, let's see. Oh, it didn't work. No. Technology can fail. It's all right? It's just basically a short propaganda video by GovTech to tell you what digital government is all about. All right, don't worry about it. Don't worry, Diana. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Right? Okay. So digital government is digital to the core, serves with the heart, and is a means to serve citizens with great empathy by designing policies, services that are inclusive, seamless, and personalized. Right? So it's very important to remember that at the end of the day, I want to treat every Singaporean, every individual uniquely, so that I can address their needs as much as possible. So these are the benefits. It's organizing our business model, brings together data and digitalization, right? And use the tools to acquire, and it is a raw fuel that powers and sustains transformation, and use the tools applied to the data set that will further enrich the value. And you'll see later how the government is trying to do to pool different data streams so you can bring it together, so that you can generate new understanding, new insights, and therefore you can do better things and serve the population with better policies, right? All right. What are the benefits for citizens and businesses? much easier to engage, that deliver end-to-end digital services and communicates with a personal touch, right? So as I mentioned earlier, you'll see later Live SG as an app. It's fantastic, right? You can do everything inside there, interaction, and you don't have to leave the comfort of your home, right? On the private side, online banking, right? I have 2 kids studying in the US, they call me, Dad, I need some money. So what do I do? Open my app and send the money across almost immediately, right? In the past, you have to go to the bank, file this form, and then pay and then take a charge. Now you don't have to do all that, right? And so life has become easy, and you lose money a lot faster because of that. But less red tape, more responsive, right? And we'll see some examples later on how the government has leveraged on the digital transformation to be able to deliver better services to our citizens. Of course, for the public officers, there's also an impact and a benefit, right? First of all, opportunity to build a digital relationship, ready access to data and information, right? Just a backstory, we decided that all our, when I was in MCI, all of our information officers get trained in data analytics. Why? Because they have a lot of access to data. Those data, if you mine it correctly, you have an insight into public sentiments, their views about certain policies, and so on and so forth, right? So government is leveraging on this, but the civil servants now, right, not just relying on third party, but can use the outcome of the surveys to sort of better design policies that can then benefit the population. So your design solution key challenge, you bring interagency collaboration, because now the world is very complex. I cannot solve a problem through one ministry. You have to be able to work and collaborate. Those who are the civil servants will know sometimes silo thinking, right? To cut across, very difficult. This allows you to do interagency collaboration, and of course you can coordinate better. Most importantly, you respond as one government. Right? The old policy was called no wrong door policy. That means you don't knock on the door and say, sorry, you go to the other agency. Now you go to any website and you all get redirected to this center that they can decide where your sort of query should go to, basically. So the idea of one government, one digital government is very important. All right, so these are some of the digital transformation projects undertaken by the government. It's not exhaustive. You start at the top end. I mentioned about national digital identity. The SingPass has been developed progressively, right? Today, for example, I can use it to interact with my bank. If I want to open a new account, right? I don't have to go to the bank. I can then allow the bank to open up one way to extract my information to populate the application form, right? And so you can do a lot more. And of course, e-payments, right? E-payment is one of those things we've been trying to push. Right? Nowadays, you don't carry cash, you carry a card. Of course, hawker center was one of those last barriers we need to overcome, but COVID gave us an opportunity. We'll discuss about it later. Live SG, I mentioned to you earlier, it started as an application called Moments of Life, MOL. Right? And there was another app called, I can't remember, it's MSO, Municipal Service Office. Essentially complaints. Right? You see a dead rat, you take a picture of the dead rat, you upload the app, it goes to the agency will sort it out at the back end. Right? Who's supposed to clean up? For those who follow Singapore politics, it was a famous example, a former PM National Day rally, right? About a stick, fishball stick by the canal, basically, right? So there's the example. Smart urban mobility, of course, we're trying to organize better in terms of the use of public transport, EVs, and so on and so forth. Punggol Smart Town, welcome to Punggol. I just moved there 1 month ago. Right? The whole area is supposed to be digitally connected. The university is there, JTC will be there, CSA will move there. Right? All the blocks are coming up very, very rapidly. And the idea is to use that smart town as a living lab, where we collect data from the lab posts and so on and so forth, and hopefully then we can do better and respond better to the residents of the smart town. Smart Nation sensor platform, I mentioned that earlier. And then on the other side, Codex and Go Business are for those who are interested to start and operate a small business in Singapore, how to register, get your license, and so on and so forth, right? So these are some of the examples, driven of course largely by GovTech, but the policy comes from MPDI. Right, who are the agency responsible? Right, so this is, let me just give you the picture better, right? So on the left-hand side, it's called the Smart Nation Digital Government Office. During my time, we call them Snoop Dogg. They are basically the people responsible for the policies, right, of the Smart Nation project. What should the policy be when you do first and so on and so forth. On the right-hand side is the GovTech agency, Government Technology Agency of Singapore, who's actually the contractor for Snoop Dogg, right? How do we create GovTech? Right? I merged IDA and MDA. 1 plus 1 equals 2. I got 2. I got GovTech and I got IMDA. Why do we need GovTech? Because we suddenly realized that we need a central agency within government to direct the digital transformation of government. Right, so GovTech used to report to me, even though it sits under the PMO's office, the Snoop Dogg also, and we discuss everything together in one. Today, they all reporting to current Minister Josephine Teo. It is no more under the PMO, it's been moved to MDDI, basically, right? Essentially, I think we have arrived to the point where ministries have socialized that we need to do something about it. I don't have to go back to PM and say, PM, can you talk to this minister? I don't have to do that, right? Which I used to do, by the way. Okay? I need to report and update. So this is the structure that we have, right? So now some example of Smart Nation projects, right? Life SG I mentioned to you earlier. For those who have not downloaded the app, it's a beautiful app, a lot of things. And Diana, I have a video after this. See whether it's working or not. Ken? They're trying? Okay, let me go back. The reason why I want to show this, because this is about all the government services, especially for the seniors. I'm Merdeka. I know my friends, I know it's Pioneer. Then there's a Manjula, different generation. So using the app, typical, right, transactional, I can go to the app and see how much benefits I'm getting from the government, how much payout I'm getting this year, and so on and so forth. Can or cannot? Can play the video? Okay, never mind. You have to rely on me. Sorry, guys. Okay, so this is a very beautiful app, right? And this is an example. If you go in for the non-Singaporeans, you can see citizenship, driving, education, and so on and so forth, right? So we collapse this from moments of life when we started it, plus the municipal office. We collapse it into one app. This is the app that you can also go and complain, by the way, right? If you think this road is dirty, it's not clean, you can take a picture, you can upload it basically as much as possible. So Life SG is one of those big apps that GovTech has developed for Singapore. The other example I want to mention is SingPass, right? SingPass as a digital identity was a game changer. For many years, we resisted it. I remember in the early days, some people from NCB said, no, don't do it. Once you lose your identity, you lose everything, basically. Then we realized that if you put in the necessary security, you should be able to do something secure, right? So you have two-factor authentication. You can do many other different things. The most important thing is it allows you to transact seamlessly with the government. And as I told you, now we can also use it to transact with the private sector. It's a one-way window where you can pool the information one way. You cannot pull the other way around, right? So you cannot change the data that you have of the individual, but we can use that data with the permission of the individual. Okay, when you SMS, are you okay, allow you click the button and the information goes up, right? So, yeah, sorry, so another video I can't play. Okay.
We get, would you be able to
no problem. I'll tell some jokes first, okay? So just give you some idea about how SingPass has been used, right? Including registration, applying for housing, and so on and so forth. So it's a very, very good sort of app. I just want to finish a story in Estonia. Estonia was the first country in the world. I met the president when I was visiting the US. 1 year after they launched it, they got attacked. Right? They got a DDoS attack, basically. Everything was down, and they point the finger at Russia. By that time, you can't do anything about it, right? So we basically decided we want to do the same thing, but of course, as I said, with all the security in place, right? Are they playing it or no? Oh, I can't move, no. Guys, I'm stuck. They're replacing it.
They take over.
Oh, they take over. A robot technology. Okay. Maybe I just stop here. If there are any questions, comments, people may ask so far. Are we okay? Are we hungry? Oh, you're going back all the way here. Oh, you want to play this video? Okay, go ahead. Go. Click. Sound. Okay, so that's a video that it's quite recent because they wanted to summarize all of the discounts support scheme for the seniors, right? Can you play the second video? Like it's before this, yeah, this one. No, SingPass. This is SingPass. Okay, play this one. Number, go ahead.
The even better SingPass is here. Let's unlock whatever you need. This, that, at even greater speed. SingPass makes things short and sweet. Now, let's proceed. When life gets busy and there's too much on hand, let it all go. Even the pen. You're just a tap away from completing the task with a digital identity you can always trust. So chill, sit back. It'll all get done. Faster, easier, safer. It might even be fun. So put your best face forward and things will click in place. Download the even better SingPass now and live confidently today.
Okay, these are all government videos, I didn't make this. So okay. Okay, can you, okay. Am I controlling this? Okay. Alright, so that's the digital government, just a snapshot of things that we want to do. I want to pivot to the digital economy, right? Digital economy is a very big part. So you want to take advantage of the latest technology. Obviously, you want all our businesses to digitalize. Hopefully they can do digital transformation. So what do? We take advantage of the industry transformation map, right? That's done in 2017 for 23 industries and 6 clusters. So when it was done during that time, my ministry was asked to develop the industry digital plans, IDP. So we put it inside the ITMs, right? Launched IDPM next weekend. And really the IDPs are supposed to help a small and medium enterprise. The big boys, Capital, DBS, SIA know what to do. Right? They're automatically linked companies, they have deep pockets, they know what to do in order to make the operation more efficient. The SMEs, one-man operation, 100-man operation, bottom line is something which they look every day. Alright, so this is the strategy. We want to accelerate the transformation, we want to basically make sure they remain competitive and transform. The enablers is that we set up a lot of support system for them. Research and innovation is something that we want to leverage on. As a policy, Singapore, yes, we buy third party, but also want to develop native solutions, right? We want to make sure that those solutions which are critical to us, we're not dependent, right? Like CrowdStrike, right? We are able to develop on our own, and research and innovation is important. Of course, we need to have the right policies, physical and digital infrastructure. You know, in my other class for foreign students, people forget we spent $1 billion right, wiring the whole island for free. So they were shocked because no private sector will do it basically, right? And so for us today, if you're a resident in a HDB flat, in your riser, there's a fiber. If you're laying in landed property, it's right in front of your house. To pull from your house into your DB, you need someone to do it, like $180 kind of thing, basically, and your whole house is connected. It was a major policy decision. I remember the debate taking place because it was a lot of money. Some people are not convinced, but we finally decided unanimously, cabinet approved it. Today, I think we are trying to up the game. IMDA just announced to increase the bandwidth. Why? People want more bandwidth to be able to play your games, watch things in real time, and so on and so forth. So, why is it? Okay, the IDPs I mentioned to you earlier is really about the SMEs. We want to deepen their sort of a digital transformation, and their specific plans, and the 2 plans that we mentioned, apart from the fact that you do for your ERP, your HR, div application, your inventory, is also cyber security and data management, right? Because they are small, they wouldn't invest unless you help them with pre-approved solution where they can then incorporate it into their design. So why is it important is the left-hand side. SMEs employ 2/3 of our workforce and contribute 50% of our GDP, right? That's a reality. All of us cannot survive with the SME. The small garage at your house that not only pumps gas, but also do maintenance for your car, change your tire, they're all SMEs, right? And SMEs look at the bottom line, right? So we need to be able to help them, right? So it's very important. So then on the assistant side, we know they don't have the pockets to hire a physical warm body to be the chief technology officer. So it's a service. So there is an agency again that you go to, you knock on the door and say, I'm from ABC pneumatic system, I want to change, how do I do that? They will assign a CTO to you. You sit down with a person who then walk through the steps that you need to take, right? And then, of course, you have pre-approved solutions. We try and go into the natural touch points. Any new businesses, you need a bank account, you need a telco account. So we work with 4 banks and the 2 telcos, at that time 6 of them, to deliver some of the solutions to basically the SMEs. So they can just go there and say, okay, I have 6 of them, I want to take 4. How much will it cost me? So what does the government do? 70% subsidy for 2 years. So for 2 years, you have 70% subsidy. Of course, the boss will ask me when I was running, what happens after 2 years? Well, you have to pay on your own, right? Hopefully 2 years, you're able to generate enough revenue to cover the costs, right? And to be able to run it on your own. And of course, we also provide advanced solutions. The idea is to help them to go regional and beyond. All right, so this is the agency. I won't go to the words. It's digital industry. It's a one-stop shop. 3 agencies, EDB, Enterprise Singapore, and IMDA. EDB, of course, is trying to bring investments from outside into Singapore. ESG is trying to bring Singapore companies outside. IMDA is actually the contractor. We provide all the digital solution. So 3 of them come together into one office. So today, if I'm a small operator selling drinks, whatever, I want to be able to digitalize, I just go to this office, right, and be able to do that. So again, when I give lectures to some foreign students, they are amazed that we're able to come together, because for them, sometimes they are pushed from pillar to post, right? So this, I thought, was good. Just to add one more thing, is that for the digital society component, it's on the level of IMDA. Right? IMDA is left with that task. So apart from dealing with the economy, IMDA is also dealing with the society. So you have GovTech that deals with government, IMDA together with 2 other agencies deal with the digital economy, and IMDA dealing with digital society, right? Which we will pivot now. Right, so what is digital society? My apologies, I should put former Prime Minister listening to, right? And the idea is to be able to allow individuals to use the skill set that they have together with the digital solution to empower them to do more things, right? So for example, in your neighborhood today, there are WhatsApp groups across each neighborhood talking about property prices, who passed away, and so on and so forth. Right? So you bring communities together. But of course, beyond that, there are other applications. Right? You'll see later when we release the data, government data, especially transport data, a lot of young people use that data to develop apps. Before LTA came out with their own apps in terms of bus timing and so on. So this is a quote from Prime Minister about the vision, right? And it's important for us to explain to people why we're doing this, right? It's really about empowering the nation, making sure that they benefit, and yet you will change their lives. The worst thing you want is that you have all these wires and devices, but your life is miserable. Which I used to remember. I think I'm oldest in this room, myself a prof. I used to go overseas, have to carry a bag, all your routers, your this, exactly, and you have to plug into the phone box, and you wait for zing, for the connection, right? All that is over, right? It was very painful that time when you go overseas. Today it's very easy. It's sort of well designed, right? So, in order to make sure that we are able to do this, we need a readiness blueprint, right? Society has to be ready. Right? Where are the gaps, where are the pockets? So a digital blueprint is important. We want to help digital literacy, bring the local community together and design solutions. So it is 3 levels, right? I just want to focus on the second one, the outcomes. Outcome is about digital access. So everyone must have access, which means you must have a device, you have connection to the internet. COVID showed us there were gaps, families that didn't have it, right? And then Minister Ong Yi Kang, Education Minister, came out and said, we'll give every child a free iPad. Supposed to be 2028. Actually, he started in 2021. He decided to give every child, every student a free iPad, right? Then digital literacy. You must know what you're doing, right? What is it exactly you're doing in terms of the transaction? When you press this button and so on and so forth, what happens, right? And now, of course, digital participation, you want to be able to use that technology to achieve a better quality of life. For example, people want to organize how, your assets that you have at home and so on and so forth, put in the cloud, is it secure, and so on and so forth. So you have that ability. You understand what it's all about, and therefore you can do things for yourself, your family, your group, and of course at the national level. At the bottom, of course, is digital inclusion by design. In other words, the policymakers who has to think is not just for me or my former colleague Yoxin here from SCS, it is for everybody. Right? The Aso Ama in Chinatown, we cannot even speak a word of English, plus the people who are coming up through the system. It has to be designed that way. If you design only for a group of people, then actually you are putting people outside, they feel neglected. Alright, so digital inclusion and access, some programs, I want to talk about three actually, assistance for low-income families. Not a new program, but we decided to ramp it up. Two things, one is device, where we work with NGOs like Engineering Good, where we give them all our old iPad, PCs, and they refurbish it, we give it to low-income families. It's called the new PC program. So when I was chairman of Mendaki, we decided to step it up because the Malay community faces certain challenges. On the internet access, we work with the ISPs. Can they give us access which is reasonable, price reasonable, right? Because they need the internet access so that we can help low-income families. The bottom line is for seniors. And very interesting, our seniors are defined 50 and above. I think half the class are seniors basically. But seniors is a big problem. And here I have a story to tell you. So it was during my time. We wanted to see what are the things that we can do to help our seniors adopt digital solutions. So we went to Chinatown. We decided to put some apps in their phone. By the way, in telephone penetration in Singapore, can you guess? Handphone penetration. No, 169, 170. All of us have 1.6 phones, right? Even the seniors have it. So we put all the applications there. So we monitor. One particular app is very, very popular. Anybody wants to guess? WhatsApp, your phone number. Some people say 4D. Right? But it's WhatsApp. And then why? Gossip. What did we gossip? Hey, you saw the Korean drama last time, and some of the men, so they were doing that, exactly, right? It was a means of communication. It widens the network. But then we stumbled on a problem. So we asked, Auntie, where's your password? Can't remember. Let me ask my neighbor. So basic cyber hygiene wasn't in place. You know, so I said, oh, alarm bells ringing, how to make sure they... So we call their family and so on. So seniors are very important. We do a lot of program called a Silver Infocom Junction. Today, if you go any of this event, if I recall correctly, it's almost every month, different constituency. There's one booth which is very popular. Anybody wants to guess? They are the ambassadors doing it, but there's a government booth. You know, they have some government agency. But there's one booth. Will always be there, and they always go there. No, the police, all right? And the police will dangle some carrots for them to come and we get this freebie because scams. All the phishing attacks, we need to alert the seniors, right? So we tell them, Auntie, you see this, don't, and so on and so forth, right? So, and you've been following, if you follow the newspaper, there's a scam alert every day, right? And there's always the seniors. Of course, there are a lot of people out there who think they're smart and they press on, including one in my family member who will mention him, because you can make the simplest mistake, right? And you do not know whether that mail is real or not. So I remember when I was in Environment Ministry, open up one day, I saw, dear sir, you have won $1 million. Wow, from Microsoft. Immediately I sent to my PA, sent to IDA. This one I don't like until IDA. It took them 1 week to come and say, Minister, don't click. I said, how come? So maybe that's after that PM sent me to FCI and IDA, you know. So obviously now we have to be faster. Of course, the best thing is, if you don't know what it is, don't click, right? I've been getting a lot of through my phone. No? There's a delivery for you, it's stuck. Can you please do something about it? I just delete it, right? So they'll continue to do that. So this is the seniors. These are the hawkers. Notice COVID? This is in my constituency during the middle of COVID. Hawkers do not want to digitalize. Why? Tax, because you know how much they earn, right? So we took advantage, because all of us couldn't go, but we can go online and delivery. So we go there, explain to them, and they come on board. So today we know how much they earn, but they're happy with it, and I think we're happy with it. And in fact, our tourists that come here very quick, they don't have to carry cash. Just your card and you can pay, right? So hawkers is also very important because they're an important part of Singapore's life. So this is all sort of a subset. We have to do a lot of these things. We do in schools, obviously, but the kids in school are digital native. They don't have to worry about it, right? All right, so what are the key drivers? The two things that always come up. You need people. Talent is very important. You don't have the right people, you're in trouble. And we have a shortage of engineers. Today's paper, Malaysia is looking for 60,000 engineers for the chip industry. I don't know where you're going to find 60,000. It's huge, right? Secondly, of course, innovation. It's only when you drive innovation. One of the, I'll tell you the story when I show you this. In terms of talent, right, for the government, we build what we call centers of excellence. So that when they join government, you're not just another civil servant, but there's a place for you to go to hone your skills and improve upon it. Our biggest problem in attracting our talent from overseas is, if they are in Silicon Valley, they're going to work with Elon Musk to put the next man on Mars. Come back to Singapore, you work on car parks. Right? So the challenge is to create interesting projects. By the way, one casualty is former PM's son. He left and went to the US basically because it's not challenging enough. So we had to make sure that they have good projects, good skill sets, and that's why that digital transformation and the national EI strategy, and DPM Heng just mentioned another national plan for quantum computing so that we can attract the best talent and do things in Singapore. So we also do that for the private sector. We have this tech skills accelerator, and the private sector is always very difficult. Those coming out from the institutions is not a problem. Those who are in service, right? So imagine you're a young man, you have family to support, children to support elderly parents, right? You have mortgage to pay. Then you ask, can you quit and just go back to school and learn about data? I mean, you must be mad, right? Basically. So how to do that conversion in such a way they don't feel that they are shortchanged is very important. It's not an easy problem, right? So we have the professional conversion program. There are other programs that we have rolled out to help people in that sector who may feel that their sector is dying, they want to move to a growth sector like AI, like cybersecurity, and so on and so forth. So we need to do something in the private sector. Right? So of course, I want to talk about the national strategy, which is the AI, right? This is something which we are driving in. And today there are many, many AI applications, including generative AI. I won't go into too much detail. This is the ecosystem. We need partnership, cannot do it alone. We need talent. We need a good data architecture. The data is the engine oil, and of course a trusted environment and international collaboration. So I remember, in the middle of winter, we went all the way to Canada, right? Because Canada, during the AI winter, actually they were working on AI. We were able to attract one company at that time to Singapore, basically. We went to MILA, Montreal Institute of Learning Algorithms. These are very, very leading edge institutions that we want to be able to bring to Singapore and collaborate with them, basically, right? All right, and then these are the projects. I won't go into too much detail. It's touching everything, right? Education and so on and so forth. So, example, there's a program now within schools to help our teachers with the marking of English paper, math paper. I think that's wonderful. For those who have been in teaching like myself, the one thing we always hate is to mark papers, right? Because then the student will come and say, sir, you made a mistake, there's one more mark for me, right? But if you can do it easily with an AI engine, of course with some moderation by the teacher, you improve the quality of life, right? Teachers are under a lot of stress. I have a younger sister who's a teacher who can tell you, the biggest problem are not the kids, the parents, right? So it face a lot of challenges. So by doing some of these projects, we hope, leveraging on AI as a tool, we can help our teachers, our nurses, our doctors, our transport workers in order to be more efficient and life becomes slightly better for them, right? Then this is the AI strategy launched by then DPM Lawrence Wong last year. Basically, the idea is to put all of this together into one big framework. It was launched last November. And the idea is really to also attract foreign investments to come in. Right? There are good projects ready to come and do. Then there is this thing called AI Singapore. All right, it was launched in 2017. I was then the minister and also in NRF. We gave money, right, to them so that they can run 100 experiments, right? So this is AI Singapore, and this is what they're supposed to do: research, governance, technology, innovation, products, and talent. By the way, any of you can sign up for the course in AI Singapore to learn from the most basic Python programming to become an AI engineer, right? It's very, very good, well-run program. not because I'm the advisor, but the director is also my former student, Lawrence, who is very focused on what needs to be done. So we've done all the 100 experiments. When government gave them money, is to run 100 experiments. Today we finished about 80 on. So government likes to give us more money, another 100 experiments. So I have to do 120 experiments. So I got to sit down with Lawrence and make sure we can meet our target, basically, right? So these are the 100 experiments, and the model is quite successful. What does it do? It goes out into the organization. Let's say you're running a fishbowl company or a logistics company, and you have a problem, right? You want to solve it using AI. You come and see us in AI Singapore. We sit down and say, what do you have? Your data, your manpower, and so on and so forth. On our side, we provide the researchers, we provide the engineers, we also bring in apparatus. The funding at the bottom is the max, is 1-to-1. So you can have a project up to $660,000 committed, right? At the end of the exercise, you get models which work, trained manpower, and certified AI engineers, right? I have to add, because my good friend Yoxim is here, on top of this, we layer the thing on AI ethics. AI ethics is very important, right? We think it's important for our engineers to know that when they use this model, what's the implication for the end user, for the society is very important. So this has been quite a successful model, right? Now in terms of data sharing, I just want to go through three different things. First of all is within government, and you'll be surprised, right? Because of archaic laws that we inherited from the British, there are silos, you know. I cannot cut across, right? I cannot just go to one department and say, can you pass me the data? So about data sharing within government, sharing of government data, and of course between companies, which is what companies are looking for. So within government, this is the thing I want to talk about. We actually legislated in such a way that you're able to give what we call a data sharing direction between one agency to another agency. I cannot suka-suka as a minister call up them, hey, can you give me the data? I cannot, right? Because they are bound by certain acts and so on and so forth. I need to be able to have something that empowers me to direct my staff to share data with the staff of another agency. Then some of our data strategy and architecture. Let me go very quickly. So this is the Public Sector Governance Act, right? It was passed in, I think, 2020 or something like that. The idea is that now I am sort of legally covered when I give a data sharing instruction. Presently, for example, you look at the Statistics Act, crafted by the British, big iron walls cannot go through. So today we want to be able to share that data, because sharing of data within government is very useful, right? If I want to have family data, MSF will only have, let's say, for example, incarceration, marriage, divorce. What about health data? What about education data? I should be able to pool them and then have a complete picture of the family data, right? So this is the, I won't go into too much of the detail. This is just to show you how even as a government, right, we will probably have to learn as we go along. So we started 2014 to 2018 with a data strategy, which was experimental, agile. Then 2018, I think, came out with an architecture, and then we have now have a management framework. The point I'm doing this is that for some of the foreign students, is that again, you need to be able to learn as you go along to see how data within government can be consolidated for the ease of sharing. Their country may have a different legislation, Singapore is very different. So this is the architecture that we have in place. It's an interesting architecture which I thought was quite brilliant. At the bottom is what we call the single source of truth. These are all the agencies, right? Whether you're EDB, IDA, IMDA, NEA, you are basically the single source of truth because you have all the data. Then you flow upwards. We have the sectoral data hubs where you go in, some of this is consolidated into a hub, and then it goes to the top to what we call a trusted center. The idea is that within government, you don't have to go to agency A and agency B, you go to the trusted center, right? So what are trusted centers, right? They are SSOT, our authoritative sources. They're supposed to maintain, clean, blah, blah, blah. So for example, the SSOT for family relationship data, right? They have to clean it based in terms of definition and so on and so forth. And today, the Ministry for Social and Family Development is the single source of authority for family data, right? So then there are other trusted centers, they are the one that aggregates. So Department of Statistics aggregate the data for both individuals and businesses, Land Authority for geospatial, GovTech for census, and so on and so forth. So the idea is that tomorrow, if I want sensor data, I don't go to NEA. NEA, what's your sensor data on pollution? I go to GovTech. GovTech has consolidated all of that, right? It makes the transfer easy. So this is an example from the Department of Statistics. On the right-hand side, government data office are all within government but sharing. So we have DOS, Department of Statistics, SLA, GovTech, as a trusted center within government. On the left-hand side is what DOS do publicly, right? I collect the data, I summarize it, I bring out the reports to the top, and so on and so forth. So it's clear that we are not infringing into what DOS is doing. They continue to do, right? But they're able to bring the data across into a trusted center because of that act. With that in place, I don't have to go to DOS. I go to the government data office, I can collect data from DOS if I want to, right? So the architecture is easy that way, so the government can share and so on and so forth. And so this is just to show you the pyramid of how we as a nation have moved on, right? And again, people forget that you don't collect data for the sake of collecting. You collect the data to be able to give insights, right? So you start at the bottom, all the way to system level governance, where now you have all these things that you can put together, draw insights, which is very useful for government in terms of the evaluation of policies and what have you. Okay, I'm just watching my time. My apologies, guys. I mentioned to you, data.gov.sg, right? Free of charge. First started 2011. I remember launching it at that time, the PNTOG hand. It was just PDF forms. You can't even read it, you know. Today is API, it's fantastic. Right? So you need to programming, use this. So when I was stuck at home in COVID, I told you I took a course in Python, I used this data. Plot it, chart it, put here, put there, kind of thing. So it's quite good, right? And then this is the one that is most difficult, right? Because companies are bound by different banks are bound by the Banking Act, Insurance Act, and so on and so forth. Well, first you want to be able to pool together. Why? I have an account with DBS, I have an account with Great Eastern. So there's one entity which is common, Yaqub Ibrahim. Insurance would love to pool all that data together. Why? For me better products, better services, right? How to do that? Got firewall now. So what do? Right? So we came up with what we call the Data Collaborative Program. IMDA is ideal, right? So that you can then bring some of these data streams together without tripping over the regulatory framework. So there are three of them. Data sharing framework, very easy. You basically take the two companies and say, why you want to share? Show me the value. Then you say, okay, have you cleared all the regulatory requirements? Okay. Do you have the manpower, the skills to do it? Okay, can now we do it? Right? So really you have to sort of socialize the companies. These are the steps they have to go through, and then you share, right? So that's this one. This one, of course, as you can see, is a sandbox, right? This is experimental. So if something goes wrong, the effects are confined only within the experiment. It doesn't spread into the economy, it doesn't spread society. Fintechs like to do this, because they want to try for the underbanked, underserved, and what have you. The last one is called the PEP. This is where you don't want to show your data to the other fellow, but you want to share, right? You want to combine together. So what do? You get an intermediary, anonymize the data, mesh it up, it says, here's the data. So I'm A, I can see which one is B, B cannot see which one is A, but I can use it, right? So there are PET providers out there, the IMDA is appointed for you to share. It depends on the sensitivity of your data. The point I'm trying to make is that unless you basically structure it, companies are very reluctant because you have PDPA hanging over your head, you have your Banking Act, you don't have to cross any of these red lines. Once you cross, you have to pay a fine, right? And it can be very hefty. All right, some statistics to end the lecture. Okay, again, this is from Smart Nation, not my data. So levels of satisfaction, 83%. You notice no data 2017. I don't know why. I wrote to them, they have not replied to me. Very curious. But this is public data, by the way, right? But it shows quite a high figure, right? And then if you look at the level of business satisfaction, 83%. Again, 2017, no data. So something must happen in 2017. Either there was a transition, or the CEO resigned, or whatever, I'm not so sure. Right? I was still minister then, so I'm not held responsible for this, okay? But the data prove that things are all right, and then this is good. End-to-end services, 99%. So somebody asked me, how come not 100%? Anybody wants to guess? Old people, right? Old people do not want to, sorry? No, they don't want to talk to a chatbot, they want to talk to a person. So you have to keep the window open so the auntie can go and, it's like online banking. Right? For my foreign students, I say, on Saturday morning, go to DBS Bank. See the queue. Who is in the queue? Old people, aunties, right? Because all of us use online banking. So in a way to build an inclusive society, you also have to recognize that there are people out there who may feel a bit uncomfortable and they should be given space. Cash is still available in Singapore, by the way, right? You can bring it. In fact, businesses cannot say, I cannot collect cash. Right? You must be able to collect cash, basically, right? But most people don't carry cash. You carry this as a backup. We carry our cards and so on and so forth, right? So 99%, which is not bad. And this is options with e-payments, 98%. So there's still some cash options which are available. Now let's look at the economy. This is interesting. This is the first study ever done by the school, right? So you look carefully. This is the 22 data. 17.3% of our GDP is contributed by the digital transformation exercises. Out of 17.3, 5.4 directly comes from the Infocom sector, the company that sells your routers, your switches, your software. The remaining 11.9% is from the other part of the economy that use ICT solutions, basically, right? And then the 2020 data that they have, the estimate is that our GDP contribution is 16.7, which is comparable to Estonia, Sweden, and United Kingdom. So we do have a baseline study, right? We want to be able to track this. Why? Because people will ask, how's the money being spent? Are you succeeding or not, basically, right? So this is not bad. In terms of digital literacy, we've done some surveys and sampling quite high. But as I said earlier, those coming through the schools, we shouldn't worry. Those in between, people tend to forget, those in between also have a problem. So we saw this in COVID. When we pivoted to online teaching, some parents didn't know what the hell was going on, right? Because they're not familiar. I mean, my neighbor got 3 kids, so we always say, Ron was, I don't know what the lessons are, what's going on, because they're not familiar. Old people, we know, right? We also tend to forget that the middle range also needs some attention, because when you change, it will affect them, right? What is online teaching? So my sister who was a teacher says, biggest problem, the parents do not know whether the homework is being done or not. We ask them and so on and so forth because they're not familiar with it. So again, educating everyone is very important so that we feel inclusive. All right, so let's conclude. Now, what are the benefits and the challenges? Right? On the left-hand side, we know the benefits. Impact on government, value creation, productivity, improve connectivity, general growth. On this side are the challenges. Right? You have data governance, privacy issues. Then you have issues around cybersecurity and cyber warfare, rise of misinformation and disinformation. I was just reading an article this morning before I came here on the use of AI to generate misinformation, right, which is a big challenge. And then global competition for supremacy, and of course the ethical use of technology. To deal with this, the framework that you can normally see is that on the one hand, you have the ability to enable and empower your society to adopt a solution. But on the other side, you need to be able to protect and regulate. Right? People will look to government, something has gone wrong. So 2 years ago, when there was a scam at one of the banks, CBC, right, about 14 million, who did they turn to? What are you doing about it? Right? So the government, and for the first time, OCBC or bank has to take out money and basically give it back what they have lost, right? So to protect and regulate is very important because we cannot just assume that it's everything honky-dory on one side, but there are challenges on the other side. So this is the act that we have in place, right? A lot of things, right? From all the way 2012 right down to 2023. Cybersecurity is 2018. We have POFMA, we have FICA, other. And if you notice carefully, right? It's again trying to understand the beast. There's no omnibus law. There's some parts that deal with harassment, misinformation, foreign interference, right? Will this all collapse? We do not know, right? But the internet is unfolding. Now with generative AI, we are not so sure. What will be the downside? So just reading a UN report, which is coming out next week, right? They have time to talk about an AI, global governance, and so on and so forth. So it's quite a big problem, right? But there are new legislation in place, right? Digital resilience announced by Prime Minister Joseph Teo, right? This is March 2024, there's a task force, and the idea is to set up a digital infrastructure act. Why? Because we are now interdependent. CrowdStrike was a good example, right? Somebody made a mistake in a patch, the whole world is affected. We are dependent, right? That's the truth of the matter. Is our system resilient enough to be able to take some of these shocks that we're not so familiar with? So this is something the government is trying to think about. And secondly, deepfakes, which was just announced again for the elections, right? I mean, I feel like saying we should have deepfakes illegal throughout, right? Not just during elections, but how to monitor, right? It has to be a complaints basis. But during elections, the Prof knows this. Right now, myself, 9 days, anything can happen, right? Things can just be swept. So Minister Joseph Into is looking at it. So in a way, we are now dealing on the sort of the downside of digital transformation, and we have to deal with it. As I mentioned earlier, if something goes wrong, the public will look to you. Something is all right, nobody cares. Nobody even congratulates. It's a fact of life, right? And so the government has to step in. The question is how much to regulate. So it's always the balance between innovation and regulation. Right? Some countries are now trying to build that up. So AI, for example, right? Only EU has an act which came into force this year. Other countries are thinking about an AI act. Why? They're worried, right? The implications of AI and so on and so forth. So we don't have an act. We have a model framework. Again, it's not mandatory. It's to encourage you to use AI in an ethical way, right? So, in conclusion, full adoption of ICT technologies across government, economy, and society. Digital government is about citizens' needs and welfare. About the economy is to transform and reap benefits. About society is very empowering. But you need to have the right policies, the right strategies, the right structures, talent development, and innovation. So it is a calibrated approach. All right? You need to have a plan. You need to be able to make sure your society is ready for it. Make sure nobody's left behind. You have to build talent. And finally, the goal is to do this because we get elected every 5 years. People will check whether you're doing it, and it's about quality of life. I'm convinced that it will help, but you need people to design good solutions with the right policies, right? For a long time, people are afraid of online banking. Today, no problem. Because why? CSA work with MAS to make sure that all the security features are in. Is it 100%? It's not. So we are supposed to do our own due diligence. Don't click on something that you do not know, right? The story I want to tell is my sister, at 3 a.m. in the morning, somebody sent a WhatsApp message. She clicked on it and gave her 6-digit identity. Gone. Her old phone was hacked. Next morning I woke up, I got a message from her. Hey, how can that be? Went to the house, gone. Yesterday she showed me another friend, right? These are bots, right? All going on basically. So for 2 weeks I didn't use my online banking on my phone. I go to my laptop. So everything is okay tonight. You never know, right? So that's the new world that we live in. And I keep telling in some of the class, you don't want to go back and live in a cave, right? We want the internet, we want the technology, but we also have to deal with the downside. All right, so I end here and open up for any Q&A. Questions?